So what are we doing? We're doing geared hub service. Why? So our wheels don't fall off on the road. No one likes that. What do you want me to say? It's a fill plug. For the geared hubs, you want to drain them, obviously, before you start doing anything on them. These usually like to strip out. If you can get it out, great. If not, you might have to use an easy out extractor or something along the lines. But anyway, every time I pull these out, I only put a new one in. I don't reuse the old ones. I don't want to deal with it next time. So I put a new one in, make sure it's a magnetic drain plug so it catches any stuff on there. But this one is not going to go back in. It's going to go in the trash. When we take the steering arm cover off here, having the half shaft out of the way will make it a little bit easier to clean everything up. And we have our cover here. This is where the bolt for the hub side is. So you hope that whoever put it on the lift actually put it on the lock. So this is our little cover here. Okay. Grab a 9/16 bolt or socket. Oh, look at that. That's not supposed to be like that. So here's a good example of why you should be checking these things. That is the bolt that attaches the half shaft to the hub side. I put the socket in, it was already loose. So what that's going to cause is while you're driving down the road, your half shaft can come in and out like this, you're going to wear out your seals quicker. So we're going to pull that out. Yeah, so this should not be loose. Lock washer on there, but yeah, that's not correct. So you got 6 bolts on here. They're in pairs. They're 15 mil because, you know, metric for some reason. These are the Nord lock washers. So they're 2-piece washers. Do not reuse them. Get new ones. Otherwise, your half shafts are going to start backing out. So to pull this out, theoretically, you just bring it down. Slides right down. There you go. Now that we've pulled this bolt, you should be able to pull it out here too. There we go. There's our half shaft. All right, we're going to pull the steering arm cover. So this is what actually, well, okay, it's called the steering arm, but for the rear, you don't have steering, obviously. So this is just a radius rod. So we're going to pull this off, knock the hub assembly loose off of it, and then we're going to see what it looks like behind it. Okay, this comes off. Okay, now we'll see if this geared hub comes off easily. So the problem with any shop, people are going to steal your Allen keys, and then they'll buy you new sets, and then they buy you this. We're going to pull the spindle off, so I need to remove the clamp nut locking grub screws, and then we'll undo it. Rev clamp nuts, I'm not a big fan of these, so I'm going to be putting the regular lock tab ones on here. The best ones to use are the blue Hummer lock nuts, but they are extremely expensive, so you just choose what you want to do. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to pull the spindle out. So when you're pulling this, you want to make sure you keep everything in the correct order. So I'm not reusing this clamp nut here, so that's going to change a little bit when we're done here. But this comes off, so don't let the spindle just fall out on the floor. What you can do is wiggle it a bit from the front, and everything here is going to kind of come loose. There you go. Okay. So here's our bearing. Slide that out. Don't lose the shims. Now the spindle just slides out once you have everything out of the back. Just be nice and slow with it. Don't drop anything. There you go. The spindle, what do you want me to tell you about it? It spins and, you know, wheel go. This is our geared hub output seal. We're replacing all the seals on the geared hubs here because we don't want to have issues with them down the road. So we just do it right now and be done with it. Get that out the way. There we go. So that's how you pull the seals out. That's what metric wrenches are good for. Aside from that, I don't know. Send them to your European buddies. That's it. Kind of press on that. And the seal comes out. And then, that's it. Throw that in the trash. So we have our steering gear cover and our mating surface for the geared hub here. Before we put these back together, we need to make sure they're clean. Otherwise, you're going to end up with leaks, right? So we use gasket maker. There is no gasket part number for this, so we just use gasket maker. This one's never been serviced. It's clean from the factory. We're going to clean it up a little bit and just make sure it's degreased. But some of the trucks that have been in service for a while will have several layers of garbage on here, so just make sure it's cleaned up nice. Circle. What we're gonna do is put the output seal in and the input seal on the other side for the half shaft. Before we put the output seal in, I like to put a little bit of gear oil around it. Helps it go in easier. That way you don't tear any of the rubber. This is the single part seal. This is what we prefer. There's also a two-piece, but it requires a special tool to depth it correctly. These, we just make them flush with the outer lip of the geared hub. You also want to make sure when you're putting the seal in, there's a spring in here that keeps it nice and tight against the spindle output. So want to make sure the spring's good, it's not sticking out. Want to make sure the rubber's not nicked or damaged. So in this case, we're good. So I'm just going to lightly place it here. And we're just going to start tapping it in. So it's nice and flush with the surface. It's not sticking out anywhere. You didn't damage the rubber here. We're all good to go. This is the geared hub input seal. We're going to do the same thing. Just put a little bit of gear oil around it. Make it easy to go in. Same idea with the geared hub input seal. A little bit of oil around it like we just did. Make sure the spring's good. Make sure the rubber's good. So it's just going to pop in like this. So this one, there we go. It's seated just below flush on the surface here. So we're good to go. Quick note, if you have a truck that had the old two-part seals in here, you need to make sure you pull the old second piece off if you're going to use the single-part seals. Otherwise, when you put this into the truck, what's going to happen is this is going to rub up against your input seal, and they'll probably melt together, so you don't want to do that. So the single-part seals are not meant to work with these. So you pull these off, clean this up like you normally would, and then go on your way. This is the second part of that two-part seal we're no longer going to be using, so we're going to pry that up a little bit, and it's going to just come right off. Comes off. Okay, so when you're about to put the spindle back in, same thing on the inner part of the seal. You want to just put a little bit of gear oil on it, make sure everything goes in nicely. That way we're not folding the edges of the seal accidentally. Go around the outer edge of the spindle here. Gear oil on there. When you're putting this thing back in, you want to make sure your stack up is correct. So this is your outer spacer here. Make sure it's in that direction. Here's our inner stack up. So you'll see there's the spacer. You'll see a couple shims there. So those shims are to prevent side play of the center gear in the geared hub. So keep those as they were. And then the bearing, and there's another indexing spacer. So we're going to put this in, and then we're going to put that in from the back, and then the spindle nut and locking washer will go on. Line up with the gear in there, or with the splines. So let's go ahead and slide it in. All right, as you're at this part, watch the seal. Make sure we're not folding it. All right, spindle's in. So now you want to make sure you're holding this, otherwise it's going to try to drop back out on you. Okay, so this is the slightly older style of locking nut, but it's the one I prefer at least. It's got two lock tabs. You just line up and you bend over a tab using a punch to actually lock it in. So the newer style is this clamp lock. So you would screw this nut on, torque it down to the right spec, and then there's 3 bolts that go in, and it squeezes against the threads. I'm not the biggest fan of this, so I'm not going to reuse that. We're going to use new lock tab style nuts. In order to torque this down and preload the bearing, you need a special tool for it with this style of nut. So it's got 2 little pins in there, and they stick in the slots on the nut. To properly preload this, the manual states, torque this whole assembly to 40 foot-pounds, spin it back and forth a bunch of times, then you back off and do a final torque to 25. What I like to do instead, that's worked pretty well. Again, it's not what the manual says, but it's what I do. I torque it to 40 foot-pounds, spin it a bunch of times back and forth. By spinning it, I mean the actual whole spindle assembly. Then I'll torque it to 40 again, because what you'll notice is that it'll loosen up as you're doing this, because you're actually seating the bearing together, or both bearings. So do that until you don't have any more play at 40 foot-pounds, then you can back it off slightly and final torque to 25. All right, so we're going to bring it to 40 foot-pounds now. There we go. Okay, that's 40. Cool. Now we'll spin this a bunch of times. Want to listen for weird noises while you're doing this too. You shouldn't hear any grinding or binding, things of that sort. So this should spin pretty freely. And this is just making sure the bearing's seated so that when you're going to drive, it's not loose and flopping around on the races. All right, now we're going to bring it to 40 again. Once you've got this torqued, you may or may not line up on a set of 2 notches here. If you don't, you can go a bit past 25. You want to make sure they line up with a set of notches. What I recommend is using a brass punch. That way it's nice and soft and you're not going to damage anything here if you slip. Now we're going to put the steering cover back on now that this is the lock tabs are in. Honestly, Permatex Right Stuff works the best. It's quick, it's easy. You just put a little bit of it on there, spread it around, and be good to go. So just spread it around, just goes on there. It doesn't have to be too thick. So nice thin layer of it, and then we're going to put this in. The actual bolts for the steering arm cover, you do want to Loctite them with blue Loctite, and then we torque it to 65 foot-pounds. We've got the cover on, so now we're just going to So what we're going to do now is remove the differential output flange. So it's got the big lock nut on there. We're going to pull that off, then the flange comes off. We're going to pop out the old seal, put the new one in, put the flange back, and then this whole thing goes back together. So I'm going to impact this off. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the star seal. So sometimes they're pretty mangled and they'll start to leak. We're going to pull the flange off and we're going to see what the seal under it looks like, but it's getting replaced anyways. This is our old differential output seal. Popping the seal out here. This is the new differential output seal. It's got a spring like any other seal that these trucks have, so I want to make sure it's nicely seated in there, make sure the rubber looks good, make sure the metal's not bent. This one's a pain to put in. There's a special tool for it, so use this guy and you whack it in with a hammer. Want to make sure you're going evenly all around and you're not damaging the seal face either. So we're going to start putting this in and we'll see how it goes. If you're doing this for the first time, get yourself a couple extra seals. You're bound to mess them up. So. Seals in. So if you look around, you want to make sure you're pretty much nice and firm around the edge here and not sticking out. So we're all good here. Oh, okay, so we were talking about the spring earlier. We noticed that once this was hammered in, the spring had actually popped out on the backside. So luckily I was able to pull some Pro Dentist moves out and use 2 picks and work it back around the back of the edge on the seal. So it's fully in there. We're good to go again. We didn't have to tear the seal out. So here's our output flange. We're going to go ahead and put this in now. Then once that's in, we'll throw the new star seal. We'll put some sealant around it, and then we'll put the locking nut on. So this will just slide in. Make sure when you're doing this that you're not folding over the edge of the seal. So get it started on the splines and then kind of look at it from the back on all sides while you're doing it. Make sure the seal's staying nice and open. There we go. This is a star seal. So it's just going to kind of sit there. This is just an extra step that the manual doesn't state, but I'd like to do it that way. It's just extra assurance that you're not going to get leakage out of here. So we put a little bit of sealant in here and we just spread it around. So now we're going to slide the half shaft back in now that the rotor and the caliper assembly are put back together. So one thing you want to make sure that you clean your seal surface nicely, so make sure there's no gouges or rust on it. If you do have rust on it, then it's not going to seal well, so you probably have to replace the half shaft at that point. Also make sure that you brake clean inside the hole here. That's your locking hole for making sure the spline side of the half shaft is sitting nicely in the hub. So we're going to put the spline side in first, then we'll bring the back side up towards the rotor. So, and also you want to put a little bit of gear oil on that seal surface. But as we're sliding it in, just make sure you're not folding the seal or something like that. Nice and slowly in. There we go. I'll bring it out a little bit, make sure the seal looks good. That's all clear all around it, so that's good to go. Slide this guy in. Now I'm going to bring this side up to the rotor. There you go. Line it up, and then we'll start putting our bolts back in. Okay, so now that we got the half shaft in and we got the new bolts and lock washers We're bolting this down to 57 foot-pounds. All right, so now we're gonna put the spline side of the half shaft lock bolt in. I'm pretty liberal with the Loctite on this because I don't want it coming loose. So we'll put that in, that gets torqued to 37. Make sure you're using a fresh spring lock on there and you'll be good to go. Okay, final torque. Okay, I'm just gonna put the little cap in here. Okay, good to go. Okay, now for the bottom of the geared hub, I always use a new drain bolt for the reason that these like to rust out and then you have a fun time getting them out later. So save yourself the trouble next time you do this maintenance, just get a new drain bolt, they're cheap enough. Good to go. All right, now it's time to fill it up. So when we go to fill this up, 80-90 gear oil, that's typically the best option for this. We're gonna fill it up just till it starts leaking out here, and that's how you know it's full. Okay, there we go. It's full, now I just put the full plug on. All right, put it on there. You don't have to torque this down too tight, don't wanna overdo it, they're nice fine threads. Okay, it's good to go. That's our hub service, we're all done.